Hi guys, this week I want to talk to you about living with a psychopath. As what's described in books, TV, and the internet is very different from the lived experience. And I'm going to start by talking to you about how you're supposed to spot a psychopath or signs of psychopathy. Health.com describes psychopathy as antisocial behaviour with traits such as impulsivity, lack of empathy, and stunted emotional development. According to research, there are two types of psychopaths, primary and secondary. Primary psychopaths can be characterized as being manipulative, insensitive, lack of remorse, and a tendency to lie. And secondary psychopaths are often linked with anxiety, ADHD, and autism. Traits include difficulty focusing on long term goals, impulsivity, and overwhelming frustration. Psychopathy is often associated with behavioural problems, deceit, grandiosity, impulsivity, lack of empathy, limited emotional responses, manipulation, superficial charm, recklessness, and violence or aggression. It's thought that the causes of psychopathy are a combination of genetics and early childhood experience, such as trauma or neglect. For my mother, I can't say what happened in her early childhood because she lied about a lot of things, but she did say that she was abused by an older man in her early childhood, and this may have contributed towards her developing psychopathy. Choosing therapy suggests that a female psychopath are more charismatic as they are more sociable and become very good at faking pro-social behaviours like flattery, kindness, and sympathy. This is usually achieved through years of watching others' reactions to situations and mimicking these responses when appropriate. Psychopaths cannot keep up with these superficial behaviours for long and will begin to let out their cruelty and coldness. My mother was able to charm social services into letting her foster another child despite having one removed from the home already. She charmed my school into thinking that I was an attention seeker and she was a loving mother who was interested in her daughter's academic success. Everyone, including my friends, thought she was a great mother and she got involved in activities outside of school, letting me have sleepovers and gave us gifts. But these were all empty gestures used to make the world think she was a perfect mother, when really it was a form of control. Psychopaths enjoy the pain of others, whether this is physical or mental, and they may begin to make comments, lash out, or embarrass the target of their aggression. They are likely to blame others for their actions, and when it's a child they are abusing, this can have some long-lasting and detrimental effects to the child's self-esteem. In my case, it left me feeling like I was a bad child, as I was always told I was doing something wrong despite not being able to understand what that was. This led to me continually trying to please my mother, as I didn't want the physical or mental abuse that would come if I didn't, not realising that nothing I did or said would change the outcome. She even made me lie to the school to make it look like I was a liar and that I was a problem, not her. My mother needed to have complete control and authority over me, whether this came in the form of strangling me, shoving soap down my throat if I said something she didn't like, constantly belittling me, calling me fat and stupid, and that no one would ever love me, or shutting me in a downstairs toilet with it full of bleach until I was coughing and nearly passed out before she let me out. Essentially, this was a gas chamber, and I still have problems with bleach to this day. Towards my later teenage years, my mother began to get a little more reckless. She began to do things in public and got a thrill out of getting away with it. She ran me over, crushing my foot, and refused to take me to hospital, held my head under water in a public pool, and laughed about it when she finally let me up. She also waited until I was about to get in the boot of the car and then sped off, leaving me landing heavily on my knees, which still causes me pain to this day. But one of her most brazen acts was after I ran away from home. She kidnapped me off of a high street in front of witnesses and CCTV. And I also learned after I left her house for good that she attempted to run a bus of dance children off the road as she didn't like that they kept beating her. It was not only me that my mother abused and dominated, but she stabbed my father, constantly abused my stepfather, sexually abused my foster sister, and I'm sure many others. She enjoyed pain and suffering so much and wanted so much control that she chose my so-called boyfriend and then told him how to rape me. Another psychopathic trait is cruelty to animals. Now, my mother got double enjoyment out of this next cruel act. I used to own and breed guinea pigs, mainly to help her make money and because I love animals. But my mother decided that it was something wrong, that I'd done something wrong, and I can't even remember what it was that I was meant to have done, but I went out one morning to feed and water them and found them all dead. Turns out my mother had snapped their necks and left them there for me to find, again blaming me for an act she committed. As you can see, I live with a psychopath, but did I know that? No. It's taken me years of talking about these events in therapy, doing a degree in psychology, and personal research to realise that I live with a psychopath. For a long time I continued to blame myself, not realising that this was part of her cruelty and psychopathy. But tell me, how are you supposed to protect yourself against a psychopath, as they are so hard to spot? How do you tell someone is superficially charming, a liar, or unable to process emotion? These signs of psychopathy are only helpful after a person is caught. Like Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, and Jeffrey Dahmer, all of these famous serial killers that no one suspected who committed many atrocities. But if you asked anyone beforehand, they were nice guys, right? It couldn't be possibly them who committed the crimes. So the person living with a psychopath doesn't know. And the psychopathic checklist doesn't help until after the person's caught. How are we supposed to protect ourselves? The answer is keep getting stories out there so we can find a way to spot these people before it's too late. Be the voice, be the change.